Let's talk about something that's been getting a lot of buzz lately, dollar dominance. People are asking, is the US dollar losing its power? Has it already taken a hit over the past few years? Is this idea of de-dollarization really gaining momentum? These are fair questions, especially with all the headlines floating around. The topic has been loaded with speculation, and let's be real, there's also been plenty of fake documents floating around trying to claim the dollar is finished. But before jumping to conclusions, it's worth focusing on the facts. When it comes to measuring the strength of the dollar, one of the clearest indicators is how dominant it still is in global finance. The Atlantic Council actually tracks this data, and what they show is pretty solid. The US dollar still accounts for 57% of global foreign exchange reserves, 54% of export invoicing, and a whopping 88% of all foreign exchange transactions. So despite the noise, the dollar is far from dead. It's still the backbone of the global financial system. That said, we can't ignore the rising presence of BRICS nations. They're definitely gaining ground and making strategic moves to challenge the dollar's supremacy. While the shift isn't as dramatic as some headlines claim, the ones shouting the dollar is doomed, it's still worth paying attention to. These changes aren't happening overnight, but I've always believed this is more of a slow erosion, a death by 1,000 cuts situation. Over time, it's going to put pressure on the dollar piece by piece. As this gradual shift continues, I think we'll start to see new innovations in how global currencies interact. Eventually, we may not be living in a dollar-dominated system at all, but rather a world with multiple powerful currencies, a multipolar system. What does that look like exactly? We'll dive into that in a moment. But first, let's zoom in on the BRICS nations and the growing influence they're carving out on the world stage. Because whether we like it or not, their footprint is expanding fast. Let's talk about BRICS and its growing influence, especially in the global south. As of January 13th this year, we have a snapshot of the current G7 and BRICS member countries, though unfortunately there's no more recent update. On the map, G7 nations are shown in blue, while BRICS countries are marked in deep red. The newer BRICS members are represented in a lighter red or orange tone. What's clear is that BRICS is expanding and fast. You might think this isn't a huge deal, but visually, it shows just how much ground BRICS is starting to cover on the global stage. Their reach is growing, and that carries serious weight in shaping the future of international economics. Now this raises some big questions. Is BRICS trying to challenge the US dollar? Are they aiming to become the dominant global force? The answer isn't a simple yes. What they're really pushing for is a multipolar world, a shift away from a single power dominating everything. In fact, Russian officials have made this very clear. A recent statement from Russia says flat out a multipolar world order is being formed. And while I couldn't read the full Bloomberg article because it's behind a paywall, even the headline quoted President Putin emphasizing that the latest BRICS summit reflects this exact shift. These aren't small changes, they're signs of a global transformation that's been building for some time. To put this into perspective, we can rewind to December 2024. Back then, Russian President Vladimir Putin stated his goal to build a more fair and balanced global system, one that respects national sovereignty, promotes mutual security, and gives countries the freedom to follow their own development paths. He mentioned reinforcing alliances like the CSTO, Collective Security Treaty Organization, to help foster stability and cooperation across the Eurasian region. His vision: a world where power isn't concentrated in one place, but rather shared in a more equal and just way. More recently, on March 24th, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov echoed this sentiment. He confirmed that the effort to create a more fair multipolar global structure is still very much underway. These developments show a clear direction. BRICS isn't just growing in numbers, they're pushing for a major reset in how the world is governed and how global power is distributed. We're witnessing the rise of a more balanced and fair global order, one where power isn't just concentrated in the hands of the West. New economic powerhouses like China and others across the global South and East are stepping up. From Eurasia and the Middle East to Latin America, nearly the entire non-Western world is beginning to unite. These countries, though diverse in culture and civilization, share a common goal to bring greater fairness to international relations. Much of this effort is driven by a desire to move away from the dominance and the weaponization of the US dollar. They're pushing for a system that gives every nation a fair shot. That's the heart of this movement toward a multipolar world. Now let's bring XRP into this conversation, because it plays a unique role in this changing global structure. A recent statement from Ripple's CEO caught my attention. He noted that stablecoins are booming across the globe and stressed the urgent need for the US to establish strong regulations in this space. His warning was clear: if America doesn't move quickly, it could fall behind in the global digital currency race. And he's not wrong. Countries around the world are already moving full speed ahead. One thing I've been consistently saying is that the future won't be built around just US-backed stablecoins. We're going to see a wave of stablecoins backed by other currencies from different countries with different priorities. So when some folks claim that US dollar stablecoins will help the US dominate the digital asset world, I take that with a grain of salt. What we're really seeing is the start of a broader, more democratic shift in the financial system, one where no single currency controls the stage. This shift is opening the door to a new kind of financial world, one where multiple digital currencies operate side by side, rather than relying on a single global reserve currency. Stablecoins are helping push that vision forward. They're not just a tech innovation, they're a symbol of a decentralized real-time financial system that doesn't depend on holding one dominant currency. When transactions settle instantly, the need for a centralized reserve starts to disappear, and that changes everything. I've said this many times before, but it's worth repeating: there's a growing push toward a multipolar currency system, and it's not just theory anymore. A report published on June 6, 2023, explores this exact shift. The key takeaway: while crypto has often been hyped as the solution to replace the US dollar, it's not quite ready for that role, at least not yet. The main issues are crypto's price volatility and technical instability, which make it too risky to serve as a global reserve currency right now. Any currency stepping into that role needs to offer stability, be easy to use, and function as a reliable store of value. To reduce the global economy's dependence on a single reserve currency, more and more experts are advocating for a multipolar system, one where several strong currencies share global influence. Each would dominate its own region rather than the US dollar running the show worldwide. Personally, I believe this is exactly the direction we're heading in. We may not fully see it yet, mostly because the market is still heavily centered around USDT Tether, which is tied to the dollar, but behind the scenes, other stablecoins are being developed and positioned to challenge that dominance. Look at what's happening globally. The European Union is preparing to launch a digital euro, the United Kingdom is working on a digital pound, and Japan is exploring its own digital yen. These developments clearly point to a financial system that's becoming more digital and more diversified. In short, we're slowly but surely moving toward a truly multipolar setup, one where power and value aren't locked into a single currency. This idea isn't just popping up out of nowhere. Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of England, and now reportedly in line to become Canada's Prime Minister, put it perfectly when he said, "In a multipolar world, you need a multipolar currency." That quote sums up what's happening right now. And as subjective views recently pointed